I'm Murray Bissett, Director of Academic Programs, and I'm pleased to present to you today Miss Grace Zhou, a North Korean defector, activist, and student at Seattle Pacific University, where she studies interior design. Grace was born in North Korea, where she almost starved to death as a child, a fate suffered by both her brothers and her father. With the assistance of Pastor Philip Buck, Grace and her two remaining family members were able to escape North Korea in 2006. In 2008, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees rescued Grace and her family from China and enabled them to enter the US as legal refugees. Grace now works with Pastor Kenneth Bae to rescue North Korean refugees from China and to help educate and provide mentorship for youths. Following her presentation, we will have a discussion with Grace drawing upon questions submitted by the audience. You can submit questions for her throughout the event using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We are truly privileged to have you here with us, Grace. And so I welcome you, and I invite you to share your presentation with the audience.
Thank you. Good morning. Before I start my testimony, I briefly want to cover key points, what I would like to cover today. I will introduce myself a little bit and describe my family's history, and I will cover some government system about my country, North Korea, its education system and prison system and human rights abuses, and I will conclude with some prayer requests. I was born in North Korea, a place where I almost starved to death as a child. Two of my brothers, younger brothers, died of starvation, and my father was tortured and starved to death. And he passed away when North Korea agents transferred him from a detention center from our hometown to a jail in the bigger city. And his crime was he left his country in search of food for his dying children. So he went to China and brought some bag of rice. But at the time, Kim Jong-il announced that whoever crossed the border, they have to get punished severely. So my father was kind of an example case, and he could not survive from that difficult time. And my oldest sister went to China to find food for us as well, but went missing and was probably, we think that she probably sold into human trafficking. And I was repatriated twice to North Korea by the Chinese government and suffered imprisonment after I repatriated. Since 2006, Pastor John Yoon, who bribed North Korean agents to let me and my two remaining family members escape North Korea as a last time. And in 2008, the UNHCR rescued me and my family from China and enabled us to enter the United States of America as legal refugees. And I am one of 340 refugees from North Korea who legally resettled in the United States. Currently, my family lives outside of Washington, D.C., and in 2013, I became a U.S. citizen. And alongside my family, I protested the forced repatriation of North Korean escapees hiding in China. And in addition to that, becoming a human rights activist recently since 2015. During the resettlement, I try hard to study during my high school, and now I'm in college. And with the school, I also have to work hard for a living. So I tried it in many different fields, like a dental office, home health care companies, and different part-time jobs as well. And I had dreams during my childhood, which was going to law school to study international law, because I thought I kind of lived in North Korea, kind of saw the North Korean government system, and I kind of learned about Chinese government system, and now I live in the United States. So those three governments are totally different. So it might helpful for me to learn international law as a defector and be able to help more people in the future. And during the resettlement, I also dreamed of going to dental school to become a dentist to help people who needed dental care in North Korea. But I worked as a dental certified assistant for 6 years to earn a living, my perspectives changed and my dreams were changed accordingly. And currently I attend classes at Seattle Pacific University to reach my academic goals as an interior designer. And due to the hardships in the resettlement in the USA, I could not pursue my childhood dreams. However, I decided to help my family in the United States by supporting them in the future as an entrepreneur. And although I could not become a lawyer or a dentist, I still have a burning heart towards helping North Korean refugees. So I will explain a little bit more detail at the end about that. And this is my brief introduction. And now I would like to move on to the government system. And for decades, I'm sure many of you already heard most of those informations already, but I would like to cover some. The North Korea's official name is called the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It also called the DPRK. And I think it has been the most world's secretive countries. And in Korean society right now, it's not that secretive as before, because many defectors, like 30,000 defectors escaped to South Korea, and many of them already told their life stories and government stories to the world already. So a lot of the witnesses out in the world now. So it's not that secretive as before, but still a lot of informations are not discovered yet. And its government doesn't like people from outside the country going in there and finding out what's going on. So it only shares what they wanted to show the world. And it shares a border with a country called South Korea with only a 38th parallel line with high security. And the two countries' relationship were sensitive and never get close to each other. I think the most recent change we saw was in April 2018, when North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, at the border between the two countries. I think the meeting was a significant moment in modern history, and many people hoped those two countries will bring some big, huge change through that meeting, but unfortunately, it became the beginning, starting point again right now. So I'm praying for that. And to better understand the relationship between those two countries, I think we have to go back to the last few decades at the history of this secretive country. The Korea on the map, we can see like one whole Korea because it was one country. And then it was divided after Second World War, and it had been ruled by Japan. But when Japan surrendered, forces from the Soviet Union occupied the north, and the south was occupied by the US force. And the Soviets supported a system called communism, right? And the US is anti-communist. So in that part, that was the kind of beginning of Korea, that both parts are not gonna get along each other. And it became solid two countries on September 9, 1948. And that continues as of today. I think the other history it covers the Korean War, which was held about 3 years, and that peace treaty was never signed again. So since 1948, North Korea has been ruled by 3 men from the same family, which is Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un, as their supreme leaders. I think that Kim Jong-il controlled North Korea and held the power for 17 years, and Kim Il-sung held a little bit longer than that. And in 2011, Kim Jong-il's son, Kim Jong-un, became the supreme leader right now, and he's the younger leader in North Korea right now. And I think at the time, around 1 million people gathered in the capital city, Pyongyang, to hear the announcement. But in reality, North Korea is home to more than 25 million people, and who live under a form of communist rule, and which strictly controls all areas of daily life. People have to ask permission to travel around, and it's difficult for visitors to enter the country and travel freely. And all TVs and radios, all communications are tuned to state channels and closely watched, and people kept listening to foreign broadcasts and some movies or dramas, then of course they will face severe consequences. And these controls mean that most North Koreans may have little or no idea of world events. But recently, I heard a lot of the young generation, like whoever born after 1990, then at least they watched 1 foreign movies or dramas, or hear like a foreign songs at least. So I think that's the biggest change right now. And a lot of defector groups and defector leaders from South Korea and other outside of North Korea, they're sending a lot of information. I think that helps a lot as well. I think there are different punishments right now among defectors inside of North Korea, but whoever watched those outside information, they will not get punished severely right now, because there are so many people are watched already. But if some people, they are copied or they're selling those products, then they will get severe punishment. And an Amnesty International report estimated that hundreds of thousands of people have been put in prison in labor camps because they have disagreed with the government. So watch those information, or meet foreigners, or help the foreigners, or get help from those foreigners. They all consider in this category, and there are many, many people they sent to political prison camps. And when you watch the videos or the news from North Korean channels, you will see a lot of big events that a lot of population, they were traditional dress and praise their leader at the public events. Those videos are of course propaganda videos, because Kim Il-sung is their son, their light, and their God to these people. But it's slightly different than before and now, because before, those people praised their leader from their true heart and deeply, really, truly praised their leader. But now it just became their tradition instead of their true feeling. So I would like to say that small change from their heart. But some of people, they were still brainwashed. So they really think their leader is their God, but a lot of people already has been changed. And compare, I think we can think in this way. So in America, we celebrate 2 big events, right? Which is Thanksgiving and Christmas. So in Thanksgiving, we cook turkey, and Christmas we wear red costumes. So in North Korea's culture became like a celebrating Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il's birthdays are like Thanksgiving and Christmas. The government system, I think, personally, I think the government system in North Korea is Kim's 3 generations. They are the supreme leader of the country, and that's absolute power. And under this power, there are 3 departments, and the government body is called the cabinet, and it is the administrative and executive body. And the DPRK consists of 3 branches too, which is administrative, legislative, and judicial. However, they are not independent of each other, and they are keep monitoring each other and keep balancing each other. And then the whole institution is authoritarianism. It's a very strict and close-watched system. And the government system, the most powerful government agency in North Korea is called the Bowibu, which is the Ministry of State Security of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, which is long name. It's the secret police agency of North Korea. It's like FBI in the United States, and it is an autonomous agency of the North Korean government, reporting directly to the supreme leader. And in addition to its internal security duties, it is involved in the operation of North Korea's concentration camps and various other hidden activities. And they're very smart, very well trained, and they are very professional on how to intervene people and how to read minds and how to torture people. So it is reputed to be one of the most brutal police forces in the world, I believe, and it has been involved in numerous human rights abuses, and it is one of 2 agencies that provide security or protection to North Korean officials and VIPs alongside the Supreme Guard. Other parts of government management are called Workers' Party of Korea. The Workers' Party of Korea is organized according to the monolithic ideological system and the Great Leader, a system and theory conceived by Kim Yong-ju and Kim Jong-il, and the big titles are called State Affairs Commission and Presidium of the SPA of the DPRK. And the presidents from each department were called Jang Sung-taek and Choi Rong-hae, but I think between those 2 leaders in those 2 departments, they probably had a severe political fights, and unfortunately Jang Sung-taek fell and he got killed by Kim Jong-un. So that's kind of a government system that I understood about my country, and I hope that's a little easier for you to understand. And now I would like to explain a little bit about education system. And I kind of learned about 10 facts about education system in North Korea. And first one is both primary and secondary schooling are required and free in North Korea, according to the education department says. First, children go through 1 year of kindergarten, then they attend the primary school, and known as the people's schools, from the ages of 6 to 9. Afterward, they attend secondary school, which depends on their specialties, and school will assign their major from that time. And teachers will pick those special talented people, and they will raise them as special talented kids along the way. And secondary schooling continues from the ages of 10 to 16. And the country says it is free, but actually it is not free. basically parents have to pay for everything that school needs and students needs. For example, schools needed to submit required supplies to upper level, but they will require teachers to submit, and teachers, they don't have it enough, so they will ask the students to pay it, and parents, so basically they're paying everything. And teachers will order students to submit it sometimes, and it is a requirement. And in reality, parents are overwhelmed, and students, they are not able to attend the school because of those. So I think North Korean education system, they say it's free, but personally, I believe it is the most expensive education in the world. And North Korea is one of the literate countries in the world. According to UNESCO, North Korea's literacy rate is 98% to 100%. However, the reality is only 1% of elites are able to go to college and work for the capital. And the literature read by North Korean students is carefully censored, and everything is about Kim Il-sung's life, story, and his achievements. And also, of course, the communist ideology as well. And women's education is one of the more progressive aspects of North Korean schools. Secondary education and beyond is equally accessible to both men and women. In the late 1950s, the government initiated the Tallima, which is a horse with flying wings. That's the campaign, and which worked to more efficiently mobilize the population. And women make up over 80% of elementary teachers and 15% of college professors. And now among North Korean citizens, people say women are breadwinners and men are security dogs for the home. So I can explain in a little bit more detail later at the Q&A session about this if you are curious. And the next one is the curriculum in North Korean schools. It focuses on Kim's family, ideology, and communist, and then the management of the country, and how to obey the law, and how to loyal to the country. And luckily, I did not attend that school system, so I don't know about that ideology much. But according to my mother and other people who get the education, I heard it was really difficult and a lot of materials that they have to study every day. And also the report I studied about, it says the average students, they will study about 684 hours learning about current leader Kim Jong-un and his father Kim Jong-il, and grandfather Kim Il-sung, and his grandmother Kim Jong-suk. I think in the future, if there are more additional leaders comes up, then more hours are required. And the North Korea states its education system is for students to acquire the concept of revolution and endless loyalty toward the party and the supreme leader. So no matter it's elites or the regular people, they also have to show their performance at their school, and teachers, they will evaluate their studies, and they will report to the upper level, and the education department will pick those people who are qualified, who are very smart, then although their background is not perfect, then they will pick and they will serve the capital in Pyongyang. And the next one is many students who go into higher education, mostly come from royal family backgrounds, and going to college is very compatible and needs a lot of requirements like a family history, backgrounds, money, and everything. And simply speaking, we can understand as children of Communist Party members are permitted to attend college. And the rest are not permitted. And although they are very smart, if their background is not good, then they will not able to go to college. But instead, they must serve as soldiers through the military system. And on the other hand, the background is good, but the scores are not good enough to enter college, then, and also no specific talents to show their ability, then in those 1% elites, they also have to serve the country through the military service, which was controlled by the presidium of the SPA of the DPRK. The other one is military service is required for both North Korean men and women at the age of 17. And before 2017, military service was optional for women, but now it's requirement for women as well, and they have to serve until age 23. And men, of course, they have to serve 10 years in the military. The exception, I think in North Korea there is also exceptional too, which is very gifted and genius and very talented students. They don't have to go to military, but they will finish college and they will serve country right away. And a lot of education in North Korea is a propaganda meant to indoctrinate students into the system as early as kindergarten. So when they begin to start words and learn how to speak, then they will start brainwashed. I think the education system also violates international law by restricting freedom of thought and expression in its people. And the December 2018 UN report concludes North Korea is committing systematic, widespread, and gross violations of human rights. And their findings cite torture, inhumane conditions of detention, rape, public executions, the death penalty for political and religious reasons, and political prison camps. And my mother, she also told me that when she was young, like a middle school, she witnessed one public execution. And now many people, they also witnessed that as well. So I think at least one case happens every year in each state. And in addition, it cites pervasive restrictions on freedom of thought, religion, expression, assembly, and movement. So basically, they don't have any freedom like United States has. And of course, North Korea totally rejects the UN resolution. And the last one I would like to share about the education system is North Korean re-education camps. Which is where prisoners go to perform hard labor, and in the prison, if they think all those people are really re-educated or perform very well, then they are able to release, but most of them are very difficult to get released once they enter that system. And the Ministry of People's Security runs the re-education camps, which is kind of unavoidable as well. The prisoners are forced into hunger most of times, and they will face severe torture, intimidation, and diseases, and malnutrition occurs. So most prisoners do not make it out of their sentence alive. And if they're alive, then it's kind of a miracle. And recently in January 2019, a North Korean denuclearization diplomat was sent to a re-education camp too. I think we all heard about that. And I believe their whole family were taken away with him as well. So these top 10 facts about education in North Korea show the most important role of education is upholding socialistic conformity. And overall, the country doesn't raise unique individuals who are given true freedom of expression. Instead, education, like many other aspects of life in North Korea, is political. And briefly, I also like to describe what is human rights abuse like in North Korea. Um, so children are dying of hunger and diseases and being separated with their parents without willingness, without knowing. And to survive, these children who are able to walk and move, they all have to work very hard to earn a living in North Korea. For example, these children have to climb mountains to collect wood blocks and sell at the market for little money or food. However, the education department also has guards who hold authorities and watching those students and forcing them to go back to school. Once they see those teenagers who are standing with the woods rather than studying class, they will take them to the youth re-education center and take away whatever they were holding to. And of course, I witnessed an instant where the officers needed some wood to warm up their office, then they will walk to the street market and they will look for those children and collect all those woods, and they will take advantage out of it. And seniors, it's very difficult for seniors alive in North Korea because they are dying by malnutrition, abandonment, and isolation. And young people, like healthy people, are restricted from freedom, forcing harder laborers without rewards. And adults are overwhelmed by pressure of supporting government, family, children, and soldiers. And military soldiers become thieves instead of protecting their own people, and become like gangsters in North Korea right now. So a lot of civilians, they're actually afraid of those soldiers who are coming down at night at those houses, and at night they will lose everything from the house, and most of them are soldiers. So many people, they're afraid of them right now instead of, praising them and supporting them. And the whole country is growing more opium than food. So in 1992, Kim Jong-il, this is father of Kim Jong-un, he launched the program called Balloon Flower Business. It's a campaign to make opium in a national level to make a country level income. So many young people in North Korea, they are in danger because of the addiction. So that's my biggest concern as well. And people are beaten to death, of course, and have no freedom, but only obey to the government, and everything has been monitored by the government. And in conclusion, I personally believe, as a survivor of the tyranny, I believe communist is a terrible system, and it is not good as it is described or worse. And our future generation should never repeat these tyrannies anymore. So we should take North Korea as an example, since the Nazi have a long history already, and I believe DPRK is modernized to Nazism. So I do believe it is very important to educate our young generation to avoid this inhuman trends in the future in any other countries. And talking about human rights abuses, I would like to point to one thing, which is the North Korean government is not only torturing their own people and controlling their own people, they also abduct many foreigners too. So in the past few years, we know that some people were lucky, but some were not able to come home alive. And in 2015, one of the missionaries who were abducted and released, his name is Kenneth Bae, like Marie introduced in the beginning. And he is a US citizen, and he was a missionary, and he went to North Korea to bring a group of people and pray in North Korea and hope to bring some change. But at the last visit, he was discovered by the Boibu agency in North Korea, Pyongyang, and he had a hard drive in his luggage, and that hard drive actually revealed all his missionary title, all his missionary reports and everything. So that's why he was sentenced for 15 years in North Korea. But he only stayed about 2 years in the prison camp, and he released under Obama president administration. And after his case, of course, there were another victim, the American citizen, the college student, and also the South Korean citizens like Koki Kim, Che Chung-il, and Moon Seok Chang. So many people don't know whether these people are abducted or no, and I heard many other foreigners, they were abducted by North Korean government. And of course, their purpose is trying to get some benefit from those countries out of those victims. But recently, it's very difficult for North Korea to take any advantages from the United States and from South Korea. So they're kind of ran out of ways to use this method. And currently, I'm working together with the Pastor Kenneth Bae for rescuing refugees from China to Korea. But due to the coronavirus right now, a lot of defectors, they are facing difficulties in China right now. Although they reached to Thailand, they are not able to enter South Korea or any other countries for freedom. So please pray for them. And personally, I believe the helping people does not need any title or position, but needs a heart. And I believe Americans, we have a really strong, loving heart. So I believe you will keep praying for those people as well. So I will end with last prayer request, which is please keep praying for these leaders who are trying hard to help those defectors, refugees, locally, nationally, and internationally. And those leaders are facing difficult time too because of the coronavirus. They are not really do any activities actively. And many companies, agencies, that are downsizing because of the financial challenges. So we need a lot of prayer for that. And also those defectors and people who are seeking freedom, they needed to mobilize in China and dangerous countries. So please pray for them as well. Lastly, please pray for North Korea. The communist country has to be ended as soon as possible, so that we can stop those tyranny in the future. So that's all for my testimony today, and I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, for an incredibly moving and informative presentation. Before we turn to some of the many questions that have already come in, I want to remind the remainder of the attendees that they can submit their questions for Grace using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Just to follow up real quick, so one of the attendees was actually asking about what might account or explain for the fate of Otto Warmbier in comparison. Like why does he end up a vegetable, but another American citizen ends up successfully released? And what might the DPRK be trying to do in that instance?
I was not there, so I cannot really tell you exactly what happened, but my suspicion is that let's see the North Korean perspective first towards the Americans. The North Korea's first enemy is American right now. I mean, ever before too. Because they say because of America, the whole country was divided into two countries, and they divided our brothers and sisters, and they cannot meet each other, and all the difficulties and all the sufferings were because of America. So they kind of make Americans as their biggest huge enemy and evil So when they see American instead of South Korean citizens, the feelings will be more stronger. And the second point is, I think he did not know much about North Korean system. So he did not know how to cope with it, and how he did not know how to cooperate with those officers when they interview him and torture him. And of course, South Korean people, they kind of know about the system, so they will be very careful once they in North Korea, and they will not touch their authority. They will not touch the information, something like that. So those are very sensitive. You know, North Korea, they're concealing and they're closing themselves from the world, and they are very afraid to expose their information out of the world. But foreigner came into their country and took their information, and they are trying to bring to their country and share those information. So they consider that as a threat. For him, I can understand, because maybe as a college student, it's very curious for him, and then he just want to take a one flyer out of North Korea and share with his friends. It's very understandable. But from North Korea side, it's not. It's information, and it's their propaganda flyer for their ideology and trying to educate their people. But if the foreigner bring it back to the country, then they must be work with their government or something like that, trying to against their government. So they consider it as a huge issue. And then of course a lot of tortures went on, and if he didn't admit in the beginning, of course a lot of severe tortures in psychological aspects and physical tortures were held. That's why he was not able to endure all those tortures. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I feel very sorry about him.
Yeah, I think all of us do. I mean, it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. So looking at a different issue, the North Korean economy, what's it like? Do North Koreans have choices with respect to what it is that they get to buy? Are there any forces of supply and demand in terms of what actually ends up getting offered? And then I do know that there are black markets as well. And, you know, how important are those to the North Korean people insofar as being able to meet their daily needs? And then, you know, black markets tend to be illegal. So what are the punishments associated with participating in those?
Okay, thank you for the question. And economy-wise, North Korea's the street market is very important for current North Korea, because that's the only source for North Korean government to sustain their economic power through those people who are running the markets, because they are collecting the money for monthly basis for that one space. So those owners of that business, they are paying money for those officers in that area. They're kind of bribe officers to watch their business and try kind of cover their business to run. And of course, in North Korea, those businesses are involved in the smuggles from China, defect to China illegally, and bring all those supplies and bring into North Korea and sell it in the market. So all those things are illegal, but officers, although they know it's illegal, they still cooperate and work together. So kind of civilians, they are kind of feeding the government employees right now. So they're kind of keeping balance each other right now. The business I think it's a little hard right now, because the US sanctions kind of controlling a lot of finance going into North Korea right now. So a lot of diplomats, they've returned to North Korea, and they are not able to bring money and other sources into North Korea like before. So whole country is facing financial challenge right now. And China is kind of supporting North Korea, but not as much as before. And a lot of Chinese citizens, they are kind of overwhelmed right now during the border. So a lot of civilians in China's side, they stop to support those North Koreans who just cross over and trying to get some help. So North Korean people, they are facing double challenges right now. So civilians are not helping them, and the Chinese government is keep searching for them and forcefully repatriate to North Korea. And South Korea is not supporting, and US and UN is not supporting the government. So a lot of ways that limited their finance sources. However, the black market is still running through those small smuggles, but due to the coronavirus, both security, the borders are highly secured, so no one be able to come out right now. So I believe those black markets are also facing severe challenges right now.
Thank you. So speaking of China, how does China benefit from North Korea and from the relationship that they have? Is there a benefit that they derive?
Yes, I heard North Korea has a lot of natural resources, but they don't have any manpower or any technology to take all of them out. And for many years, North Korea were sending the irons to North Korea. I mean to China, and wood to China, and just the cost. I mean, the price was one wood, like a really long fit wood, was for one defector. So they were exchanging defectors from China, and then North Korea was supporting the natural sources. But recently I heard that the North Korea, the Musan area, the whole factory, some portion of the whole factory was sold to China. So actually the Chinese companies are actually coming into North Korea, and they're taking natural resources and exporting to China. So I think China is slowly taking more advantages because of their relationships.
Thank you. Let's see. So in addition to prayers, what can Americans do that might enable North Koreans who want to escape to do so successfully and to not be repatriated when they do succeed?
I think it involves a lot of stages and steps, but I think for college students, I think they can involve with those nonprofit organizations or organizations who are working with defector groups to support those defectors. I think they can involve with those organizations. They can donate their talents, their time, their knowledge to support those organizations, and these organizations will help refugees more professionally. That's my first suggestion. The second suggestion for professionals, I think we can like submit petitions or change government regulations towards those North Korean defectors, and force those government employees to work hard to receive or accept North Korean defectors from the third country, and change policies or foreign relationships with China to let them stop repatriating North Koreans to North Korea. I mean, that's the best solution. If China cooperates with us and stop repatriating North Korean defectors to North Korea, then a lot of North Korean defectors will reside in China because they're already married, they have children, they have family, so they can freely live in China. But because Chinese government does not recognize North Koreans as refugees, so they always take them back to North Korea, although they lived in China for 10 years or 15 years or have children, family. They don't care that if you don't have legal document, then you have to go back to your country. So that's very very sad thing that we as North Korean defectors cannot change. but I believe American government is stronger, and I think we have ability to work harder to change that in the future. So hopefully US government can accept more refugees from third country, and ask the Chinese government to stop repatriate North Koreans to defector. I think that these two things are very big things for those North Korean defectors.
I think they're both very good ideas as well.
Thank you.
Definitely something that we could do. So my understanding is that often South Korea is somewhat lukewarm in terms of receiving North Korean refugees. Could you shed some light on that as to why that might be the case?
I think South Korea right now is kind of overwhelmed by accepting North Korean defectors. Right now, there's about 37,000 North Korean defectors who legally resettled in South Korea. So when I think about South Korea, it's like a weight that before it was North and South Korea, they had a balance, but now a lot of people came into South Korea, so it's kind of weighed down a lot. So South Korean government is kind of facing challenges about that too. They have to provide financial support, housing, free education, and long-term assistance and security and all that. So South Korea government, they cannot provide all those employments for their own citizens, but they also have to take care North Korean citizens. And North Korean citizens, they have priority. I mean, they can get hired by the company. Some companies are required to hire some of numbers of North Koreans in South Korean companies. So by facing all those challenges, the solution is that if America or other countries, foreign countries, they change their policy and willing to accept North Korean defectors as their refugees, I think it will help a lot South Korean government, and a lot of South Korean citizens, they will feel less burden, and they will be more happily welcome North Korean people, and they probably will support North Korean defectors more positively in the future.
Thank you. So 2 North Korean defectors were recently elected to the South Korean National Assembly. How important a development has this been for the North Korean defector community?
I think that's a very huge change and a very admirable thing that we can see. Because now we can have a representative who can raise the voice from North Korean defector community. Before, we didn't have any representative in government system. So we all were individual survivors who were raising voice and asking the world. But now we have more official representatives. So I think that's more important for this community to form a group, form a official group to represent our ideas, our requests to the country volume and international volume. So I think that's very important change, and I feel grateful and thankful for the government who gave that opportunity for North Korean community.
Wonderful, thank you. Do you think that North Koreans in North Korea want reunification of the 2 Koreas? And if so, why?
My answer is yes, but their unification and South Korean people's unification idea is totally different. Because North Korean people, of course, they want to reunify with South Korea because they were one family before. But their reunification is make South Korea as communist country. And of course, in South Korean people, they are saying reunification, but they also want to make the South Korean system into North Korea become one country. So basically the citizens, they think they are talking same topic, but their ideas are different. So right now the peaceful reunification is not possible unless the North Korean regime falls down. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think almost all of the North Korean defectors that escape over the border into China. So when they do get to China, how do they end up going to either South Korea or any of the other countries that end up taking them?
Before 2005, there were more options, but now there's only one option available, which is going to Thailand, Laos, and then cross the a narrow river with a crocodile. It's very dangerous to cross that river with a little boat. Once they successfully cross that river, they will claim themselves as the North Korean defectors into their government. Thankfully, the Thailand government is recognizing North Korean defectors as refugees, and they will send them to the prison and report to the South Korean government first. That's how the South Korean government will be able to take them as their citizens from that system. So from 3 days to 6 months, South Korean government will take action, check their backgrounds, confirm their identity, and then bring them back to South Korea and grant them a South Korean citizenship. And some people, they're willing to come to America instead, then they will go through a little bit longer process. Some people take 1 year, some people take 3 years, 4 years, and some people they're still waiting there and cannot come to America because American policy, they said if they don't have friends, family, or relatives, then it's very difficult for them to come into America. So for North Korean people, they're taking 3 different stages of danger until get to Thailand. First, when they cross the border between North Korea and China, it's very dangerous. Once the the soldier was not there on time, or was changed, or got discovered by other soldier, then exposed to the government, then those defectors, when they cross the border, they could be shot to death, or while they were crossing the river, it's very dangerous too during the winter time too. If the ice is not hard enough, then they will just fall into the river and they will die in the river. During summer, of course, it was a water flow and it's very dangerous to swim across. So a lot of danger involves there. The second stage danger is in China. Chinese government formed a special group of officers only looking for North Korean defectors in Yanbian area. And if they got discovered by those groups, then of course, forcefully repatriated to North Korea. And inner China also, each city, they have security guard, and each time they pass, they have to show their identification cards and everything, anything that can show they were Chinese citizen. If they cannot prove it, they will get caught, interviewed, and repatriated. So to pass all those securities, they cannot take cars or bus or anything like a public transportation. They have to cross those security checkpoints by foot. So they have to walk mountains or unpaved roads for nights to cross those checking points. Of course, China is a big country. Passing each city or states is very difficult for them. If we have like a strong, powerful brokers, which is very expensive, then they will hire police officers and they will let them pass those security checkpoints. So then they can safely get to the Laos or a destination inner China easily, and they are able to cross the river to Thailand. But otherwise, it's very risky. And if they're lucky enough, then they will get to Laos and cross the border to Thailand.
Thank you, Grace. As just a final question, one of the attendees observed, you mentioned your missing sister. Have you and your family looked for her, or are you still looking for her? Do you know anything about what might have happened?
Yes, unfortunately, we do not have any news about her as of today. I heard some similar news about my older sister for 2 times during those years, but we could not find where she is, whether actually she is the actual person or no, we don't know, because of my family posted a searching letter on the North Korean community website in South Korea in Korean letter. So we kind of explained how she looked and how old is she. So some people contacted us based on those information. So we don't know actually those people met my sister or no. We tried to search, but it's very expensive, and financially we don't have that ability yet. So we cannot search in bigger level, but we are keep praying, and we are keep eye on those social media, and hopefully she can watch us on the social media someday and come to America and looking for us.
I pray that that's the case. Thank you very much, Grace, not only for sharing your story with all of us, but for your work in helping those North Koreans who still suffer under the tyranny of communism. I want to thank all our attendees for joining us, and I would encourage you all to join us for our next event in the Communism in the World series, which will take place in 2 weeks on July 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, when the subject will be Cuba, Castro, and Che. We will be joined by John Suarez, a veteran human rights activist, the executive director of the Center for a Free Cuba, and an expert on the history of the island of Cuba. You can find more information about upcoming events, our curricular resources, and other professional development opportunities for teachers at victimsofcommunism.org. You can also follow our work on Facebook and Twitter at VO Communism. For the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, I'm Murray Bassett. Thank you all again for attending, and have a great day.